And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Hello, I'm National Weather Service Meteorologist Peter Chan with your Alaska Aviation Weather Outlook on this Sunday, March 16th, 2025. And to set things up as of this late Sunday morning, we have a weak area of low pressure off the Kenai coastline and outside of Prince William Sound. There is a moisture feed that's going to be coming up in along the intercoastal mountains, including areas toward Yakutat. There's a winter weather advisory along the northeastern Gulf Coast for 3 to 5 inches of snowfall into the day on Monday. And then further to the west, we have IFR conditions for Monday morning along an elongated remnant frontal boundary, a couple areas of low pressure. That energy is going to be shifting east-southeastward. There'll be another area of low pressure just southwest of Kodiak Island, and another moisture feed rotating back up toward the northwest, and that'll provide another area of precipitation working its way up through Kodiak Island, Cook Inlet, and especially along each side of the west arm here of the Alaska Range. But Monday morning, IFR conditions, northeastern Gulf Coast, lower Copper River Basin, and back across the Alaska Peninsula into the central Bering. For Monday afternoon, we find that area of IFR conditions around Prince William Sound, eastward through Cordova, Valdez, and Yakutat, and then up along especially the intercoastal mountains in the northern panhandle and inside there toward British Columbia. Also, this expanding area of IFR, southwestern Gulf, Kodiak Island, Shelikof Strait into the Alaska Peninsula. For Tuesday morning, as that moisture feed comes northward, and then you have that upslope flow along those east and southeast facing slopes of the Alaska Range, passes along here, we'll have IFR conditions there Tuesday morning. And again, all along the Gulf Coast, IFR conditions into the intercoastal mountains, the inner channels there of the Panhandle. Back further west, another low beginning to impact the far western Aleutians. And then for Tuesday afternoon, we find IFR conditions along the Alaska Range and also eastern Kenai, Prince William Sound, northeastern Gulf Coast into northern areas of the Panhandle, especially say up through Lynn Canal and down towards Stevens Passage. This area, though, expect lower ceilings, some periods of snow, accumulating snow, especially upward glide there along the Alaska Range. And then we find that low pressure out in southwest Bering with an arcing front extending eastward, similar to the previous low. Now looking at passes here for Monday, up there in the east central portion of the Brooks Range, Anaktuvik and Aitken passes will have VFR conditions very clear. As of this Sunday morning, Anaktuvik Pass was 24 below zero for the state's minimum temperature, as was Arctic Village. Now, Aitken Pass, VFR as well Monday. For Lake Clark and Merrill, the west arm of the Alaska Range, as you're getting that upslope flow of moisture coming in from the south and southwest, we expect MVFR conditions there as we go through Monday afternoon, and will likely become IFR Monday night into Tuesday morning. Same thing, Rainy Pass, VFR early in the day becoming MVFR, and then IFR as we get into Monday night and on Tuesday. Windy Pass, MVFR, maybe briefly VFR there in the afternoon. And generally speaking, Isabel Pass should generally retain MVFR conditions on Monday. Mentasta Pass also generally MVFR conditions. Tanita Pass may see a period of IFR in the morning and then MVFR for the afternoon. And then along Prince William Sound, further east you get there IFR conditions, but Portage Pass essentially MVFR during the day Monday. The west entrance could become VFR for a time Monday afternoon, and then the east entrance toward Prince William Sound will deteriorate down to IFR conditions. And then in the far portion, the northern parts of the Panhandle, Chilkoot and White are looking to be MVFR in the morning, giving way to IFR conditions. And again, much like yesterday, we do not have any domes of warmer air aloft associated along and ahead of frontal systems, nor some strong mid-upper level ridge of high pressure. The 2,000-foot isotherm for freezing levels aloft is way south of the Alaska Peninsula and Kodiak Island. Down there in the North Pacific, the surface freezing line runs through the lower Bering, across the Alaska Peninsula, out into the central Gulf, back up along the outer coast there of the Panhandle. And where we do have moisture, clouds that are producing precipitation or areas of precipitation, we find the potential for icing along the northeastern Gulf Coast in particular, above 3,000 feet. And then back here, as the next surge of moisture comes northward out of the North Pacific and it pushes up across into the Gulf and along the southern parts of the Kenai Peninsula, Kodiak Island, the Alaska Peninsula, will find the potential for moderate icing above 4,000 feet on Monday. Upper level jet stream winds, weak ridging up into the Gulf. We have northwest flow along the outer Gulf Coast, outer panhandle. Winds aloft at 30,000 feet, 65 knots, not especially strong. Back here, though, we do have a stronger jet core of 120 to 145 knots out through the western half of the Aleutians down into the North Pacific. At 9,000 feet, we do find evidence of the polar easterlies across the North Slope and Arctic coast. At 9,000 feet, 700 millibars, winds out that way 30 to 35 knots. Into the Gulf, we find a little bit of weak ridging with winds just outside of the eastern Kenai and Prince William Sound out of the west-northwest at 40 knots. And then we bring it down to 3,000 feet closer to the surface. Polar easterlies very evident here across the far north along the Arctic coast, North Slope. Strongest coming in off of that Lisburn Peninsula around Cape Lisburn up to Point Lay. This area could still see some blowing snow. We'll bring it down to the turbulence level here from the surface to aloft. But here's that a couple pieces of energy rotating out of the North Pacific here by Monday afternoon. And we do have a band of stronger 35, 40, even 50, 55 knot winds down into the North Pacific. Backside of it, 35 to 40 knot east-northeast winds on the Bering side of the Alaska Peninsula. And this all translates to a likelihood of moderate turbulence along the western Brooks Range and along the northwest Arctic coast there. That includes the Chukchi Sea from around Wainwright through Point Lay to Cape Lisburn and Point Hope, surface to 4,000 feet. And then a couple other areas of moderate turbulence, entrance to Cook Inlet, Kennedy Entrance, Barren Island, surface to 5,000 feet, down through Shelikof Strait into kind of the central portion of the Alaska Peninsula, surface to 4,000 feet, and then trailing out along the eastern, central, and western Aleutians. There will be areas of moderate turbulence on Monday, generally surface to 3,000 feet.